your ancestors, all the ancestors that's passed through here. Everybody say Ashe. Oh man, this is the place to be. Barbara and Tia, we love you wherever you may be in this universe. We love you. Everybody say Ashe. If you want to rent this place for anything, talk to Nabi. He got smaller rooms, larger rooms, medium-sized rooms. Now this next brother comes out of Philadelphia. Is Philly in the house? I know y'all here somewhere. I know they three of y'all in here. And plus him. But he's doing a lot of great work with our children all over the world, especially when you go and educate all over the world. And usually this brother travels for free and do lectures for free and just sell his products. He is a board certified psychiatrist. And he's helping our children to stay away from the garbage of the food, the medicine that they're trying to feed our children by diagnosing them with ADD and all kinds of different abbreviations and acronyms and all kinds of craziness. So you know what I need y'all to do for my brother and give him a well-deserved round of applause. I want y'all to get up. Y'all gonna do this exercise with me, you know. I want y'all to get up. Get up. Show this young doctor some love. I want y'all to put your hands together for my brother, I'm telling you, who's doing the work for your children, my children, everybody's children in here. Only if you listen to what he got to say. Put the hands together for this money. We can't clap the hands, clap your feet, and welcome on stage your brother, the one, the only, Dr.Umar Johnson. He is a descendant of Frederick Douglass doing his thing.
Gotta clear this out. When I speak, it's just me. No activity behind me, please. Respectfully. No activity behind me when I speak, please. Good afternoon, family. This is Dr. Umar Johnson coming to you from Philadelphia. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. Today I want to take a little bit of a detour. Most of the time when I speak, I know I deal with the psychoacademic war against black children, how special education and psychiatric medication and juvenile incarceration and psychological frustration leads to a premature extermination. I deal a lot with the menticide, the self-inflicted menticide and the European-inflicted menticide, relationships. But today I want to go on a different route. I want to talk about a subject that I don't really talk about a lot, but it needs to be covered at this time. And that's political and military science. We have to talk about political and military science. Why do we have to talk about political and military science? Because a lot of times when you are having conversations with your friends or with yourself, with family, when you're at the church, when you're at lectures, when you're in the neighborhood talking about how African people can solve our problems, many of us come up with all kinds of ideas, all kinds of solutions, all types of strategies to come up out of our situation. Problem is we often lack tactics and we often lack an understanding of military and political science. The laws of war are no different than the laws of education. The laws of war are no different than the laws of science. The laws of war are no different than the laws of mental health. And one of the reasons why we have had such a difficult time climbing out of our situation is because many of our so-called solutions are not solutions but band-aids. And unfortunately, band-aids can only address symptoms. To address a cause, you need a solution. But the only way a solution is going to be effective is if you understand the principles of military and political science. If you come up with a solution for education, if you come up with a solution for family, if you come up with a solution for economics, if you come up with a solution for culture, for spirituality, any solution that you come up with that denies the essential reality that you are at war with the European is likely to fail. If you play chess, then you understand before you move. You have to understand, you have to foresee, you must be a visionary to anticipate what your opponent's move is going to be as soon as you make your move. So tonight's presentation, I'm going to divide it up into two parts. And for the sake of time, I'm going to cut it down some as well, because I know you guys been here for a long time, and I ain't got no Ritalin in my pocket, and I don't want to see no ADHD behavior start kicking up. So I'm going to keep it as short as I possibly can. First part of the presentation, we're going to look at the code of white supremacy and how it keeps black people in the situations that we are in. That's the first half. The second half, we're going to look at what? The Black Supremacy Handbook. We're going to look at the strategies that our ancestors have used since their confrontation with the European to overcome their oppressor. What I want you to do is to start mastering these laws. So whenever you start discussing strategy, whenever you start coming up with solutions, you make sure that you have checked off every possible strategy that the European could use to try to destroy what you're building. And on the flip side, you want to make sure that you incorporate every strategy that our ancestors have used historically to overcome the European. Contrary to belief, the European has not been able to defeat Africans as easily as we're normally led to believe. The Zulu Wars lasted more than 100 years. The wars with the Ashanti was protracted. Even the wars here with indigenous Africans took a long time before he came successful. So we got to recognize that we have a strong revolutionary heritage of defeating the European. The problem is we've lost our knowledge of those laws. So we want to get into that. Number one, let's talk about the definitions. Political science, military science, strategy, and ideology. Now at the bottom of the list, I have ideology. Most of us spend 99% of our time on ideology. What I believe in, what I stand for, what my principles are. But remember this, when you are at war, political or military, your ideology don't matter because the laws of war are neutral. The laws of war are neutral. So if you get caught up on ideology while you're going to war, you will be defeated because the laws of war are neutral. So first we talk about political science and military science. What's the difference? They both involve war and they both involve combat. Military science is the art of what? Armed physical combat with your enemy. There is violence, there is aggression, it is direct, it is physical, it is in your face. That's military science. Political science is the art of what? Non-aggressive, non-combative warfare. But politics is war and war is politics. You fail to recognize that you are at war because you don't necessarily see a gun in your face. But for those of you who study the military classics, such as Sun Tzu, you understand that most wars are won before they go to the battlefield. Then we got to talk about strategy. Strategy is the various objectives that you are going to use to carry out a victorious war. So you break the war down into strategy. Strategy is nothing more than the objectives that you're going to use. Many of us deal with strategy, so we do a little better than ideology. The problem is what? We're not dealing with tactics. What are the specific behaviors that you're supposed to engage in to bring about a successful war? In the conscious community, we're often stuck on what? Ideology and strategy, no tactics, and no understanding of military and political science, which means you're likely to lose the war because you're not following the code of war. Next, what is the code of white supremacy? There's 11 laws that every white person obeys on earth to keep you in your place. Remember, Europeans are only 10%, if that, of the world's population, but yet they have been able to dominate the other 90% for more than 500 years. They have created the most awesome social system ever devised called global white supremacy. And if you don't understand global white supremacy, not only will you not be able to understand anything else, but you also will fall sucker or victim to the racist because you don't understand the laws that he lived by. So let's talk about their code. The 11 laws that every white person lives by. I don't care if they're in 4th grade, 8th grade, 12th grade, 21, 41, 81, all white people follow these laws. And you need to recognize what they are. Number one, never let blacks know what you're thinking. Intentionally mislead them if you must. Never let black people know what you're thinking. A lot of you often get upset when you find out that you've been lied to by a coworker. You find out that you've been lied to by a white neighbor. You find out that you've been lied to by your boss. Not only is it within their nature to lie, but it is a part of military science to lie because the art of all war is deception. So while you're getting angry at the white man, you're failing to recognize that he's practicing military science. The reason you get angry when you get lied to by a European is because you fail to recognize that he is your enemy. But he doesn't fail to recognize that you are his. You fail to recognize that she is your enemy, but she doesn't fail to recognize that you are hers. And so every interaction between a white person and a black person is never neutral. It is never non-political. It is always political. Every discussion, every conversation, every voicemail, every text message is in fact a mini battle. And you got to recognize that every time you are up front with a European, that you are engaged in subtle combat with your enemy. And if you mistake that subtle combat for friendship, for camaraderie, then you will end up getting fired. You will end up losing your home. You will end up being arrested because you're trying to become friendly with someone who is an enemy. Number two, always try to figure out what they are thinking and planning so you can disrupt it or capitalize upon their genius. White folk are always trying to do what? Uncover what you are thinking. Always trying to do that. Why? Because they are a minority. They must absolutely understand what the majority is doing to stay in front. Because in terms of pure numbers, they will lose. So the only way to make sure that they ensure a victory is to do what? Outthink you by figuring out what you're doing beforehand. And some of us, because we still believe in good white people, are often falling prey to the tactics and strategies of white supremacy. Number three, always appear to be friendly and humanitarian. Never appear to be aware that you belong to or identify with the race that rules. Every time you come in contact with a European, they're acting like they don't understand racism. Can you explain it to me? They act like they don't understand the black experience. Can you explain it to me? They act like they don't understand the psychoacademic war against black males. Can you explain it to me? They act like they don't understand mass incarceration. Can you explain it to me? That is deliberate. They're supposed to play dumb in order to make you dumb. So you got to recognize when you're dealing with the enemy, not only do they know what you're going through, they set it up and they support it 100%. Some of us are often hoodwinked by who? White liberals. Europeans who appear to sympathize with the black cause. You are being suckered. There is no such thing as the liberal European. The blatant racists and the other cover racists are both fighting for the same thing, dictatorship over African people. There's no such thing as a liberal. There is no white liberal walking the face of this earth who would willingly give up their white supremacy card to be equal with you. William Lloyd, let's go to William Garrison. He started the American anti-slavery movement. Everybody thought he was the best white man that ever lived. He was fighting for black people to get out of slavery, or so we thought. But when the Civil War ended in 1865, my ancestor, Frederick Douglass, asked him, why are you disbanding the American anti-slavery movement? And he said, because slavery is over. And Frederick Douglass said slavery is not over until the African has the right to vote, to get an education, and to be employed to take care of his family. And what did William Lloyd Garrison say to Frederick Douglass? He said, I was not fighting for equality. I was fighting for an end to slavery. And many of you fail to realize that the Europeans that you are working with, those Europeans, are not fighting to make you equal. They're simply fighting so you can suffer a little less. Number four, look for blacks you can use to advance your cause. This is never difficult, as most of them identify with the oppressors in the first place. Always look for black people who are sympathetic to the white supremacist crusade. Now some of us say, why would any African be sympathetic to his enemy? That's because many Africans still don't recognize that the European is their enemy. And then you have to question yourself. Right now we are in the what? Hollywood shopping season. How many of you are voluntarily taking your money to Macy's? Voluntarily taking your money to the malls, making rich white and Asian people richer, recognizing that they are your enemy? The dollars in your pocket are some of the most potent weapons that you can ever use in a war against your enemy. Particularly in the United States of America, where you are outmanned militaristically and can never win an armed struggle. Why? Because number one, you are in lesser numbers. You have less resources and you don't command the land. Whenever a smaller army has defeated a larger army, it's by doing what? Drawing them into their own land. That's how Cuba won Bay of Pigs. That's how Vietnam won against the United States. That's how our brothers and sisters in 1993 whipped the United States behind in the middle of the ghetto in Somalia because they drew them in to their own land. So we got to recognize military science, black people. Some folk going around saying we need to get guns and start fighting the cracker. That's ridiculous. you'll get the whole race exterminated. Most importantly, because what? You don't have an international ally. That's one of our biggest problems. We don't have an international ally as a nation in exile. And by the way, I'm 100% unapologetically African. If you have a problem with that, that's your business. I'm an African. Africa, from the soul of God. I am an African. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, always will be. Number 5, use religion to gain their confidence. They are a religiously immature people, as historically, whenever we endorse their gods, it opens up an opportunity for exploitation. They tend not to think clearly under the influence of religion and have a natural inclination to care about other people more than they care about themselves. That's why the megachurch is not a threat to the state. That's why T.D. Jakes was George Bush's #1 point man in the black community, and that came out of George Bush's mouth. Why would the biggest black preacher be close friends with one of the worst races that we've ever had to encounter? Because the black church is an extension of the white supremacist establishment. Number 6, always remember, no matter what they say or do, to keep your dignity. Never forget that you belong to the white race that rules, but never profess this, as it is the mark of the politically immature white person to let black people know that they are in charge. And this is why the Europeans you encounter never let you know that they have a benefit. What do they tell you? My mother was on welfare. What do they tell you? I grew up in the hood. What do they tell you? I'm unemployed just like you. You can never compare black poverty with white poverty. Never. Because the white man still benefits from white privilege even when he's dead, broken, poor. Yep. And you can never compare black middle class with white middle class. Why not? Because class deals with wealth ownership. Black people in the so-called middle class don't own wealth. They own bank accounts. Houses that are not paid off. Car notes that are not paid off. Timeshares that are not paid off. We own cash, they own wealth. But to make us feel better, they make you think that the black middle class is equal to the white middle class. Well, let me ask you a question. For everybody in here who's middle class or college educated, if you got fired tomorrow, how long could you live before you ended up on the street? Now, let's ask another question. If a white middle class person went unemployed, how long could they last before they ended up on the street? They would probably never end up on the street. Why? Because they got stock, real estate, businesses, multinational corporations. The white middle class person could retire tomorrow and live off the residual income of their investments and wealth, whereas you would have to look for another job. The so-called black middle class was created by the United States government in the aftermath of the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 to do what? Create the illusion of inclusion. And if you don't stay conscious of the illusion of inclusion, you will end up being one of those Negroes who think times have gotten better since 1865. Well, let me ask you a question. How much wealth did we own in this country in 1865? 1/2% of all the wealth in this country was owned by African people. Today, December 18, 2011, guess how much wealth you own? 1/2%. That's with your multi-millionaires. That's with your billionaires. You know why? Because black people are steered into the direction of depleting their financial resources and never using it to transition it into wealth, which makes you a permanent dependent, a permanent consumer, a 21st century slave. Never invite them into your home unless absolutely necessary, but always try to gain entry into their living quarters to ascertain if they can be trusted. If you notice, white folks who know you, whether it's your boss, whether it's your cable man, whether it's your insurance man, whether it's your so-called friends, co-workers, they always trying to come past your house for a reason. Can I come by and get a quick signature? Can I come pick this up? Can I drop this off? I need a place to chill for a couple hours. The highway is backed up with traffic. Can I come over your home and relax for a while? But you notice they never invite you into this. Most of you who have had a white person in your house have never been inside of this. You know why? Because you're being suckered into the art of war. White folk deliberately seek entry into black homes because they have to assess whether or not you can be trusted. They cannot trust you on face value because some of us do have a little bit of military science with us. So as a result of that, they gain entry into your home. Because no matter what you say out of your mouth, no matter how you dress, if I see the inside of your kingdom, I will know exactly the type of Negro you are. And that's why you got to keep white folks out of your home. I knew a black man. He worked on Wall Street. He made six-figure salary. He had a young white intern, an upstart, who was all up under his behind, trying to master everything he learned how to do. Somehow, one day, that white boy asked him if he could visit his home, and he let him. 2 weeks later, he was fired. The jealousy that the white man had for how this black man was living, his white supremacy chip got too much over him. And he came back to the job, stabbed the brother in the back, set him up with all types of booby tracks, and he ended up taking over his position without half the experience. Keep on trusting white people if you want. Whenever you hear Negro talking about there's some good white people, then that's some good Negro people. There's no such thing. I didn't say you should be disrespectful. I didn't say you should teach our babies to hate. I don't want no African child hating their enemy. I want them to thoroughly understand their enemy. Hate is an emotion, it is energy, and we should not be wasting energy on the enemy. Number 8, if you can, during verbal altercation with their leaders, try to provoke emotional reaction or use word trickery to confuse them. If you are successful, this will cause the masses to lose faith. This is one point where a lot of black leaders do very well. If you've ever seen the late great Dr. Khalid Abdul-Muhammad Ashe, if you've ever seen him on Donahue, he didn't fall victim to this. If you ever see Minister Farrakhan, he don't fall victim to this. Even sold out Sharpton most of the time, he don't fall victim to this. And so a lot of our leaders have not fallen victim to this, but they like to do it. And that's why when you get into an argument with a white supremacist, first of all, let me back up. What you doing arguing with white people anyway? What you doing that for? Why are you trying to intellectualize your struggle with the person who created it? You should never argue with white folk. I get invitations all the time to debate white folk on psychiatric medicine, special education. Debate you for what? Whether I win or lose, it ain't changing your position because you are my enemy. Are y'all following me? Stop wasting your time. Well, I'm trying to get her to understand the black experience. Her race created the black experience. Number 9, always try to get them fighting with each other. Once they start, it is difficult for them to stop. This is the most important strategy. They have a most unique fondness for destroying one another that supersedes all other interests once it gets started. Are y'all following me? Are y'all following me? This is how they keep us in the situation we're in. So I'm telling you right now, if you got a beef with anybody, if someone says something about you that is not true, you have a right to defend yourself against what was said, but you must resist the opportunity to attack back. Once you attack back, you are now being a pawn in a white man's chess game. And that means you're going to have to develop discipline. Black men, that means we got to put our egos back in our damn chests. And why is it that so many black men have such a big ego? First of all, psychologically speaking, I am a psychologist. A big ego is really an extra small ego. It's just under a magnifying glass. Are you following me? And so you got to recognize that and stop feeding into that. People going to insult you. People throw slides at me on the low. Do I let them affect me? No, I got to keep on going. Keep your eyes on the prize, brothers and sisters. Stop fighting with each other. Why are you wasting so much energy on somebody who doesn't understand power? Number 10, if you are able to provide some material support to them or their organizations, this is certain to triple the awe and reverence they naturally have for white people in general. And you will be able to use them like chess pieces, even against each other, to fulfill your agenda. I am a Garveyite. I follow the teachings of the greatest black leader of the 20th century, the Right Excellent Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. My flag is red, black, and green. It is no other color, nor would it ever be another color. That's what we do. RBG, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Mr. Garvey said what? Never let. Marcus Garvey said never let the European financial institutions and organizations. And the Garveyite said why? President General. And the President General said because white participation and white money and a black struggle is like cancer. that dissipates our ability to do for ourselves. So you must not accept the white dollar. You must not accept white participation. Now some of my sisters are saying, well, Brother Umar, what about my after school program? I'm not going to knock you, sister. You do what you got to do. But for black men, we should never, ever take $1 from a white man to solve our problems, because the hand that pays rules. Number 11, last but not least, never reveal the code to them. Without knowledge of this code, they will never see us as a unified group of exploiters, but will assume that we are divided by petty difference like they are. How often do you think two white people don't get along because one's a Catholic and one's a Protestant? How often do you fall for the petty difference that a white person is rich and one is poor, so they must be enemies? That's your problem. That's your baggage. That's your failure. Stop projecting it onto your enemy. Are you with me? White folks don't like each other. The Jew think he's better than the Italian. The Italian think he's better than the Irish. The Anglo-Saxon think they're better than all of them. But when it comes to the collective progress of the white race, when it comes to agreeing on your particular place in this world, they all agree unapologetically. And we have to be able to do the same thing. Whether you're more Hebrew, Pan-African nationalist such as myself, whether you're a Christian nationalist, socialist, integrationist, whether you come from another planet, whatever your situation is, when it's time to solve our problems, we got to leave it at the doorstep and come together as a race. Even if we don't agree on what we want to call that race, recognize that we are all the same. See, there's no need to get strung up on names. You know why? Because God has no one name that can represent the supreme ruler of the universe. Some of us call him all types of names. You know why? Because you can't define the undefinable. And since we are God's first people, no one name is adequate to describe you too, because you are undefinable. Stop assuming that white folks have the differences that you have. One of the top strategies of white supremacy is to do what? Start a fight with each other in front of you to gain your confidence. They will deliberately start a fight with you in front of your face to gain your confidence. And so now you think there's some breathing room between the two of them, and that was nothing but a good old-fashioned white supremacy tactic. Master these rules that we're going over today, brother and sister. Use them in your life, use them in the community, use them in your family, and know them well, because one day you will have to use them to defend your race. Now, let's talk about the white supremacy handbook. Once we're done with the white supremacy handbook, we're going to get into the black supremacy handbook. I'm going to show you how our ancestors, ever since they started combating the European, have been successful. We're going to talk about what Bookman Dada, the voodoo priest, did in Haiti. We're going to talk about Ya Asantewaa and what she did for the Ashanti kingdom. We're going to talk about African people who have been successful against the European in this century, or in the last century, because we're in a new one right now. Rule number 1, the information strategy against black people. Overwhelm black people with insignificant and useless information. They are particularly attracted to conspiracy theories. Be sure to mix accurate and inaccurate information together to keep their faith. Don't be concerned about the threat this poses, as we are the ones in control, and thusly we can alter our tactics as necessary. The fact that they know our strategy means nothing, because they have no idea of the tactics which we can change at a second's notice. And you wonder why you got every Alex Jones book and we still in the situation we in. You wonder why you done watch every conspiratorial DVD and black folks still in the situation you in. By the time the DVD was made, his whole chessboard changed pieces. He's always 10 steps ahead of you. The only way you can be on the same page that he's on is to have a spy inside of his inner circle. And white supremacy is not that weak to allow a spy inside of their inner circle. We are, though. And that's why most of our leaders have been taken down by who? Their right-hand man. And we're going to talk about the right-hand man in black history. Let's talk about rule number 2, the one-man, one-vote strategy. Brothers and sisters, just because you have the right to vote does not mean you have power. Just because you have the right to vote does not mean you have equality. Just because you have the right to vote doesn't mean a damn thing if you don't have development. You notice how whenever the European goes into Africa, the first thing he pushes is what? Democracy. Why doesn't he push development? Because he's confusing you to make you think that one equals the other. And he's handpicking every candidate that you've ever voted for. Democracy means nothing without development. In fact, we don't even need a damn democracy. What we need is righteous leadership. How many African kings and kingdoms existed for millions of years without no social unrest, from the grassroots level? Because the people were content with the leadership. Listen to me. Listen to me well. You don't need to be looking for democracy. You don't need to be looking for socialism. You don't need to be looking for communism. You don't need to be looking for an aristocracy. What we need is the rule of righteousness. That's where we're deficient at. Are y'all following me? It doesn't matter what governmental system that you put in charge of us. If the person in charge is an unrighteous Negro, it will fall overnight. Because the one thing we got to build with each other is trust. That's that invisible cultural glue that holds the people together. And we don't have that. So stop falling for the democracy trick. Let's talk about confusion. Half of you in here are falling victim to the confusion strategy. Be sure to provide assistance to blacks while you are destroying the blacks. Let me say that again. I got a not-for-profit corporation. I got an after-school grant. I got a 501c3. And Brother Polite had already told you earlier that once you get a 501c3, your hands are tied and you cannot participate in political activity. Guess who created the 501c3? The Rockefeller dynasty. Why did they create it? Because their political scientists said that if you finance the same people you're destroying, you'll be able to destroy them quietly. How many of you got not-for-profit organizations getting grants from the city, state, or federal government, and that same money, the same person giving you the money is gentrifying Harlem, pushing black people out of Brooklyn? You being financed by the same person who's financing our extermination. Stop being greedy for the white man's greenery. Every act of aggression on our part must be followed up by an act of compassion. This will confuse the victims and will lead them to believe that there are actually different kinds of white people. Because they are suckers for humanitarian acts of grace, you can keep their faith and kill them at the same time. This is how Africa was taken. Have you not read Chancellor Williams' Destruction of African Civilization? They came in with Bibles. They came in with Qurans. They came in with all types of books. The missionaries are the handmaidens of the military. They always finance before they kill. So we got to do what? Stop being so greedy. Because whatever the white man does, we likes to outdo him. If he's a capitalist, we want to be super capitalists. And if he's a pedophile, some of us want to be super pedophiles. This pedophilia situation is getting ridiculous, black people. And I got some news for you that you need to learn. Just like I taught you that in 1972, 73, they voted to take homosexuality out of the DSM, the diagnostic manual that we use in psychology and psychiatry. Homosexuality was in that book until 1974, the April of 74, the sixth printing. They made homosexuality legal so they could use it to do what? Populate, exterminate African people. Stop falling for the nature versus nurture war. Homosexuality is about reducing our numbers. If everybody in this auditorium decides to only cohabitate with somebody with the same gender that you are, if everybody in here only has sex with the same gender, where would the next generation of African babies come from? This is racial extermination. When I told people that the homosexual curriculum would come into the public schools 5 years ago, they said I was a conspiracy theorist. 3 months ago, what did California do? Pass the nation's first mandatory homosexual curriculum. New York City schools are infusing it right now in their social studies curriculum. Most of the other states around this nation are prepared to teach your 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd grade babies that they have a choice to live as a man or live as a woman. Wow. Let me give you some other current news. Listen to me because you heard it from my mouth. So when you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Listen to me right now. The new DSM, the new Diagnostic Manual of Mental Health, will be coming out in March of 2013. There is a special task committee of the American Psychiatric Association who are actively fighting to remove the diagnosis of pedophilia out of the book. If they are successful, in March of 2013, it will no longer be considered a mental disease to want to have sex with people before the age of puberty. But the problem is what? We spending all our Christmas money on iPods. The problem is what? We spending all our Kwanzaa money on video games. Do you know that you can take your money that you're spending on Christmas gifts and build an independent black school for every African child in this country? You can do it today. You can do it tomorrow. The late, great Dr. Amos Wilson, in whose image I come. The late, great Dr. Amos Wilson, in whose image I come. Fellow Garvey psychologist said what? Before we can build economically, we got to build unitarily. Because until we see ourselves as one unit, we will never support each other's economic initiatives. And so that's why before we build the economics that Brother Polite is talking about, I got to build a psychoeconomics. I got to build the desire for you to want to spend with each other. The desire for you to want to live with each other. The desire for you to want to build schools for your children. We know this one all too well. The infiltration strategy. You must always find a black person amongst them that you can trust for critical information. You need not always entice them with money because sometimes their petty jealousies and the opportunities for revenge is enough ammunition to secure a snitch. This tactic is very useful, especially when your research reveals former lovers of their men and former lovers of their revolutionary women. Many of their women will be willing to destroy their men without a need for payment. And it goes the other way around with the sisters. White supremacists know that the best ally that they can ever have in a political military struggle against black men is his queen. Right. And sisters, they also know that the best weapon they can have against you is your king. Watch who you sleeping with. Make sure they committed to this struggle. And on the terms of relationships, I want you to start going on a relationship fast.
There you go.
When one relationship is over, you need time to heal your wound, black woman. When one relationship is over, black men, you need time to heal your organs. Because every time you let some of life's fluid out of your body, black man, you just decrease your life energy by 5%. And if you keep on busting, you're gonna bust your ass right into a graveyard. There's rules to this. There's rules to this. There's sexual rules. There's mating laws, reproductive laws. You see a brother 21 years old and you're looking 81, you know what he's doing. Draining his fluids to death. Sister, draining your fluid to death. Did you know that your vagina is nothing but a back door to your unconscious mind? And when you allow him to stir up your unconscious mind, he stirs up all those negative memories that you don't like thinking about, and that's why you tend to hate him 5 minutes after you laid with him. The mistrust strategy. Never underestimate the need for blacks to fight one another as a means of discharging their anger. Black leaders often have the same rage and impatience as blacks in the street. We must use the same strategy we use to induce mass homicide to bring about the destruction of black militancy. J. Edgar Hoover used this strategy effectively for 50 years to keep a lid on black insurrection. Use their natural distrust for each other by instigating and highlighting differences. Have your black agents start rumors and then get out of the way and watch them fighting ass niggas self-destruct. This is how they destroyed the Panthers. This is how they destroyed the Black Liberation Army, because we don't like to talk to each other when we got a disagreement. That was writing letters to Huey, sending letters to Stokes and Carmichael, and instead of picking up the phone saying, "Did you write this?" they assumed. Stop assuming. Assumptions that get you killed. Don't assume on your brother. Everybody's ego get the best of them once in a while. Ladies, yours does. Brothers, ours do. But you got to work on that ego and come back to your brother, because at the end of the day, you better remember this. All you got is the people in this room. Don't you know? Rule number 6, the God strategy. Black people are hopeless, and like any hopeless people, they have a tendency to rely on divine intervention to stop their problems. We should encourage this weakness in them. In fact, we can use this to our advantage by creating natural disasters that they will assume were created by God. This strategy worked with AIDS. It also worked with Hurricane Katrina. Furthermore, we should encourage the proliferation of religious centers in the black community to spread the belief that God will solve their problems. Religion will effectively keep the masses away from the revolutionaries because it gives them another avenue of hope. But guess what, revolutionaries? Guess what, nationalists, socialists, religious nationalists? Don't destroy the religion of a sick black person because they'll automatically assume that you're attacking their God. Back off their religion. I keep telling y'all to back off. You're not going to organize this race by going after the religion. Go after their heart. Go after their commitment. Go after their racial identity. Go after the ancestors and their environment. That's who you go after. Marcus Garvey said what? The Universal Negro Improvement Association, the African Communities League, is not a religious institution because we got enough churches and mosques. He said it's not a social institution. We got enough clubs for that. He said there's only one purpose for the institution of the UNIAACL, and that is nation building. We about nation building. Nothing else but nation building. Stop falling for the God trick. Soon when you see an Arab who's a Muslim, you assume he your brother, but you ain't got no damn 7-Elevens. So when you see a white man who's a Christian, you say he or she is your brother, but you don't own none of those Fortune 500 companies. Don't you know that religion is just a military tactic? When we study black history, you have to study it for the good and you got to study it for the bad. Too many of us don't look at the mistakes that our ancestors made. You got to look at the mistakes. What's the biggest mistake that they made? The belief that if we share the same religion, we share the same worldview. Stop doing that. You have nothing in common with no other race, and would you please stop trying to unite with all these people of color? We need help from the Native Americans. We need help from the Hispanics. Don't even use the damn word. A Hispanic is an African who speaks Spanish who don't want to be African. The revolutionary strategy. This is very important because this is coming down the pipe next. Pay attention to this. I want you to pick up the latest edition of Time magazine. It's either Time or Newsweek. The person of the year for the first time in the history of Time or Newsweek, I forget which one, but you'll see it. The person, the Time, is the protester.
Yeah, that was.
Why is the protester the person of the year? Because white supremacy's new face is the grassroots activists. White supremacy's new face is the grassroots activists. And that's why when we really begin to build, guess what, good people? We got to see everybody in here criminal clearance. Not to see whether you're a righteous brother or not, because we know there's a mass incarceration war. The reason we need to see your criminal clearance is because during the Black Power movement, the police made street corner drug dealers knock off Panthers. They made them knock off members of the Black Liberation Army in exchange for lenient sentences. So the reason I got to see your criminal record is not to judge you, black man, but I got to study whether or not you can be used as a double agent. Are y'all following me? This is real serious. This is real serious.
Yeah, baby.
You must do well to find out what the blacks are planning and then hijack their efforts. Don't prevent or destroy their efforts, as this will arouse the temperament of the masses who we need to remain sleeping. Simply jumpstart the revolution before they can get started. And with the people not knowing that you are controlling the movement, they will think it's the people's army. Do you know that Occupy Wall Street was a hijack from the real Occupy Wall Street? Did you not know that the March on Washington in 1963 was a hijack from the real march? Do you know that the original planners of the March on Washington originally planned to lay down on the airport fields and don't let no airplanes land? That was the original March on Washington. They was going to shut down the damn airport. That was real revolution. But let me tell you what the government does. If we plot a strategy in here that we're going to put into effect February 1st, they will create that same strategy and put it in motion January 1st. And because we don't have our own communication network, all the blacks in the community will run to their struggle because they got started before we did. Be careful. There's a lot of brothers and sisters out here who are talking counter-revolutionary, who will tell you to put your life at risk for something that won't work, brothers and sisters. Be careful. We courageous, but we gotta be intelligent too. And we gotta be intelligent and be courageous. Think twice before you move out, because you might make a decision that costs you your life or quality of life and don't even matter to the people. Number 8, the misleadership strategy. This is real key in the age of Sharpton, and in the age of Messy Jesse, and in the age of the others. You must create leaders to replace those that threaten our agenda. You must be wise in your choice of replacements and should therefore ensure they embody 7 characteristics. Are y'all ready? Every black leader that white supremacy chooses to put out in front of you must meet 7 qualities. 1, they must be charismatic. 2, they must be chiefly concerned with themselves, but not their people. 3, they must have a religious backdrop which will keep the people spellbound and not interested in political progress. I'm not saying that a black man is automatically dishonest if he claims to be a representative of God. But once they become a representative of God, you can no longer hold God's representative accountable. It's the biggest hustle in black history. Whenever they want to put a leader in front of you, give them a Jesus, give them a Muhammad, give them an alien, give them some damn body. Because guess what? Once you have determined that they are a religious representative, you don't ask them, where's the money going? You don't ask them, what are you doing for the hood? Are y'all following me? So you got to beware of that type. They must be terrified of white people. They must be easily controlled. And then they must be greedy for money and attention. They must have a damn ego. They should have some relationship with a previous leader whom they trusted to ensure followership, authenticity, and trust on the grassroots level. Since they respect money and collegiate education, it's oftentimes better to use a celebrity or a scholar than a grassroots organizer. So now they got Bill Cosby talking for you. Now they got rappers talking for you. You can't have no Negro talking to you who's worth $50 million. Revolutionaries must come from the same class of people that they lead. Are y'all following me? You have never had a revolutionary ever who did not come from the class of the people that they are struggling for. And you know why that is? Because if I don't feel your pain, if I don't wake up the way you wake up, if I don't sleep the way you sleep, if I don't go to work the way you go to work, then guess what? I won't see your situation as important as it is. I might have better things to do. Choose your leaders wisely. And do me a damn favor as we go into 2012, stop letting them choose you. Let's talk about the success strategy. Whenever people believe they're making progress, they tend to relax their struggle and settle for the illusion of progress. Thusly, to prevent a unified front on part of the oppressed, we should give them meaningless victories, which will create division within their ranks, as some will be content with the petty gains, while others will want to press onward, but will not have the manpower to do so. These petty political victories should be attributed to our hand-picked leaders to keep the people's confidence. What was the #1 petty victory that you was given? President Obama. President Obama. You Negroes celebrated his victory more than the 13th, 14th, or 15th Amendment. More than the Civil Rights Bill of 64 or the Voting Rights Act of 65. You celebrated that victory more than the commutation of Mamiya's sentence. More than Geronimo getting out of jail. Why did you do that? Because the media, the fourth branch of government, effectively sold Obama to you. Nobody in here even knew who he was before 2004. He showed up as a guest keynote speaker at the Democratic National Convention as state senator of Illinois. Why in the hell would the Democratic National Convention bring a junior senator from a state of Illinois, which is like the congressional ghetto? And I'm not knocking my Chicago brothers and sisters, but this is how white folks view it, because that's the only place you can get elected to the Senate from, is Chicago, because it's the strongest black electoral district. Why did they make Obama the Democratic speaker? Because they wanted to see how white people reacted to him. And when white people reacted favorably to Obama, they said, guess what? I think we got the weapon we can use to reopen Africa to the exploitation of our interests. Obama is not in office because of you. They didn't need Obama to brainwash you. All they got to do is turn on the damn Super Bowl to brainwash your ass. Obama had nothing to do with you. All they got to do is put on the next top model for your ass and you done. Okay? Stop patting yourself on the back. Negroes running around talking about, yeah, they put Obama in there to brainwash us so we wouldn't stand up for ourselves. Negro, you ain't stood in about 50 years. Why would you stand now? Obama was put in office to hoodwink our brothers and sisters on the other side of the Atlantic. Through AFRICOM, he has successfully put military bases in every major strategic location on the continent. Your black president is responsible for the recolonialization of your homeland. And what is Obama's domestic agenda? Barack Obama's domestic agenda is to make homosexuality totally acceptable in the black community by the time he leaves office.
Because he's homosexual.
And some of y'all making a mistake. You're confusing our struggle with the gay struggle. our struggle ain't got a damn thing to do with nobody else's struggle. You want to confuse our struggle with the gay struggle? Where was the homosexuals and lesbians when we was getting dogs sicked on us? Where was the homosexuals and lesbians when we had water holes sicked on us? Where was the homosexuals and lesbians then? Where was the Mexicans then? Where was the Native Americans then? Where was the Hispanics then? Where was the East Indians then? Where was the Arabs then? Don't tell me you my ally. They stood in the background. And as soon as Dr. King and them got that bill signed by Lyndon Baines Johnson, all those people of color came out of the damn hiding room and linked arms with you. You have to understand that the only ally you got is people who look like you. The Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said that in a world of wolves, one should go armed. Mr. Garvey said the most powerful weapon in the reach of black people is to practice race first wherever you go. Not fraternity first, not profession first, not lies first, not light skin or dark skin first, but African first. Once the world sees that we put ourselves first, brothers and sisters, we can flip the whole thing around. President General Marcus Garvey said that if black people got to know themselves today, we have a new reality tomorrow. The invisible power strategy. You must keep the true source of your power invisible. Constantly develop and use a host of middlemen who serve to buffer you from the criticizing black masses. As long as they cannot identify the general of the army, it will be difficult to defeat it. If necessary, pay your functionaries to assume blame for the faults of the system. You ever see sometimes when something goes wrong with black folk, a white person steps up to take the blame? And you say, why is he on the news blaming himself? He gonna lose his job? No, he's not. He might lose his job, but he ain't gonna lose the money. In fact, he's gonna get more. Can I give you an example of somebody who did this? Conrad, what's the brother? He ain't a brother. Who poisoned Michael Jackson for Sony Records. What was his name?
Conrad Murray.
Conrad. That's a perfect example. Sony Records killed Michael Jackson, brothers and sisters. Not no damn injection shot. Why was Michael Jackson murdered? Michael Jackson was murdered because he owned 100% of the Beatles catalog. That black man owned the music rights to the most successful group in American history, and he owned half of Elvis Presley's catalog. So whenever you buy a Beatles song, a hair Beatles song, Michael gets paid. And so Sony Records wanted that catalog back. They said, how did this effeminate Negro be so shrewd to outthink us in our own business? So they stepped to Michael Jackson and said, you gotta give that back. And he said, I'm not giving it back. They said, well, you owe us about $20 million. He said, yeah, that's because y'all sabotaged my last album, Invincible, to deliberately put me in debt, so I have to give up the catalog. So then Michael Jackson was approached by a white music promoter. He said, why don't you take 20 tours? I'll help you get out of debt. Mike said, sure. They sold out in one day. And then people start saying, maybe this man at 50 got the same attraction he had at 5. So Mike said, I'll do 30 more. Sony Records said, damn, how are we going to get the catalogs now? If he goes on tour, he pays off the debt, he keeps the catalog. There was only one thing left to do: kill him before he went on tour. And so he came back to the Staples Center to practice. And to be honest with you, I think one of his own blood relative family members, and I don't know this for sure, but my spirit is telling me that one of his jealous siblings brought his ass back so Sony could kill him. Had Michael Jackson. Had Michael Jackson. Had Michael Jackson.
He set him up.
Order. Had Michael Jackson successfully went on tour, not only would he have kept the Beatles and Elvis catalog, brothers and sisters, but do you know what Mike was going to do? He was about to start the world's first totally independent black-owned record and distribution company. He would have drew all the black artists to him. All the rappers would have came, jazz would have came, gospel would have came, R&B would have came, neo soul would have came, and he would have bankrupted the whole damn music industry with one rule. That's what we talking about: strategy and science. When you can't hit him with a bullet, you hit him with a dollar. The finance strategy. It has been our observation that capitalism has taken over the so-called black struggle. It has been our observation that capitalism has taken over the so-called black struggle. It appears that the fight for Pan-African freedom has become another brand or commodity to be sold and exploited for our own ends. We have found that financing their leaders and community-based organizations has been the most efficient means of controlling the entire damn community. Why do you have a after-school program in your neighborhood? Why do you have a Mothers Against Violence in your neighborhood? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the mothers who got the organization, stay with me. They don't understand military science. But the reason why they give the nonprofits the money is during election time, they expect the nonprofits to go out and make you vote, which you will. A sympathetic vote because they funded my organization. You failed to realize that the reason they gave you the money had nothing to do with helping poor black people. It was everything about controlling your vote on election day. Stop falling for the okie doke. Gender, one of the best victories of slavery was that it did what? Upset the natural balance in the household. So black men are struggling against black women, and black women are struggling against black men, and guess what? The cracker uses this against us. There's a disgruntled sister, you don't like a certain brother who's in a leadership position, come on over here, we'll pay you. Certain brother, you don't like the sister, she cheated on you, left you, won't let you see your kids, whatever the situation is, come on over here, we'll help you get her back. And at the end of the day, they end up getting both of your asses back. Sisters, you got to raise up the brothers, and brothers, you got to raise up the sisters. Nothing should come before a black man, and nothing should come before a black woman. Identity strategy. Every 10 years, the white supremacist does what? He gives you another identity to fight over. In 1970, what did he drop in the community? Hispanic. Soon when he dropped Hispanic in the community, at least 25% of y'all sitting in this room start looking for a Spanish ancestor. You start climbing up the family tree, shaking the damn tree for a Hispanic to fall out. So you ain't gotta be black no damn more. In the year 2000, what he dropped? Biracial. Y'all start climbing the damn tree again. I heard I got some Irish in my family. I heard I got some Jewish in my family. I heard I got some Italian in your family. They won't even let your ass in a pizza shop. You talk about you half Italian. And then what did they drop on you last year? 2010? Multiracial. You said, I know I got something else in me. I think I got some Native American. So now some of y'all filling out the damn census, which you shouldn't be filling out any damn way. Because the whole purpose of the census is to do what? See how effective the extermination campaign is going against black people. Don't you ever fill out no damn census. They got black people knocking on your door, talking about we need to do this so we can have more representation in Congress. We need to do this so we'll get more grant money from the federal government. My grandmother been filling out those damn census for 100 years. We ain't got one extra dollar in the hood. Don't believe the hype. Identity. Tiger Woods. He said, I am Cablinasian. Caucasian, Indian, black, and Asian. To that white woman divorced your ass, you turn Negro real fast.
Oh yeah.
You turn Negro real fast. And ain't won a damn tournament since. Woman took $1 billion out of that man's pocket. Do you know that she was a poor, broke housemaid?
No,
and now she one of the richest women on the face of the earth.
She was a nanny. She was a damn nanny. Poor ass.
Rule 14, the intimidation strategy. Rule 14 says what? Rarely do white supremacists do this, but Rule 14 says whenever you think you can scare a black person out of revolutionary activity, you do that. They do this with who? Politicians, community activists, and religious leaders. They step to you and say, if you don't stop it, your son who's selling drugs is going to jail. Your daughter on probation is going to go back and serve out her whole time and sentence. This is what they do. They intimidate the hell out of you. So if you got a whole card in your pocket, put it out there before they do. Let the community know what it is before they do. So when they come blasting you on the front page, you can already say, my people knew about that already. We done took care of that. Next. Next. Because they will always get you with a whole card. Who did they get with a whole card? Jesse Jackson. 2004 election. He said he was going to do what? March on the inauguration of President Bush. Jesse said, this is wrong. Y'all threw out 18,000 black votes. We're going to march on George Bush's inauguration. Never been done before. So they said, wait a minute. Don't he got a baby by another woman? Oh, hell no. They went straight to the news. Put that on the front page. And if you notice, Jesse never got to the Capitol. Y'all see that? Put the whole card out before they get you. Number 15, the legal strategy. They love this. Never allow yourself to get caught trying to justify your behavior to black people. Always deflect attention away from your actions toward the policy on paper. Our strength lies in being able to conceal the contradiction between what we do and what we say we do. Keep language vague, as this will always allow you the opportunity to use the law to defend whatever you do. Most importantly, it confuses the Negroes, and a confused Negro is an ineffective Negro. This is what they do. You say, he did this, and they say, well, on paper, it says you can't do anything about that because technically we wouldn't discuss that. But you're saying what he did was wrong. The hell with the law. It was wrong. Something should be done. But no. Look at the law. It's not in the writing. Don't you know that constitutional law and state law, this is what they trained us in political science, brothers and sisters. It's intentionally vague so it can be used to fulfill whatever end they want. Are y'all following me? Remember, if the law was the law, what the hell you need a lawyer for? You don't. The law ain't the law. The law is a bunch of European words that can be twisted and turned in whatever way the attorney wants to twist it in. So don't you dare fall for the legal strategy. You keep your eyes on their behavior. Let them know, I understand you have a law, but I got my own, and I don't accept that shit. Let them know how you feel. Number 16, the double enemy. It is important that we entice altercations between effective black organizations. By creating a war within the movement itself, we stagnate progress as the leaders have to fight on both fronts. This is advantageous because it allows us to destroy both groups while remaining invisible. It also fatigues the leader and causes his or her followers to abandon the mission, as most blacks are afraid of organized confrontation. That's right, black folks. They like to do what? Get the organizations fighting. Get the Garveyites fighting with the Moors. Get the Moors fighting with the Hebrews. Get the Hebrews fighting with the nation of guys and earth. Get the guys and earth fighting with the Nuwapians. Get them fighting with the Sunni Muslims. Get them fighting with the Baptists. And while we fighting each other, who's running away with the prize? Do you know that every war fought in Africa right now by black people against black people is financed by the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and United States aid organization? That they go in and finance, here's a gang, and here's a gang, and they go to gold. Here's a gang, and they go to diamonds. Here's a gang, and they go to coltan. Here's the gang, there's the best water on earth. So we're gonna pay you, and give you weapons, and you don't know that we financed him, because again, we don't communicate. So now we over there hacking each other arms and legs off in the service of white supremacy, and CNN putting that on the news, making you think black folk don't know how to act when they the ones financing the whole damn thing. Where do you think they got the guns at? There's no small arm producer on the continent of Africa. So whenever you see a gun in Africa, you know China or America dropped it there. The tribal strategy. A united black front is our greatest threat. Therefore, we must highlight the differences that exist among the different groups of blacks to ensure that they never unify around a common agenda. Pre-existing petty differences must be intensified whenever an effective coalition appears to be in the making. They do a good job of this themselves, but we must make sure that it stays that way. There is no strategy more critical to white supremacy success than your collective self-hatred. From a psychological standpoint, I want you to stop making excuses for why you are at odds with a brother or sister. There's always a reason not to like some damn body. Are you following me? We keep on rationalizing our self-hate. Well, I did that because she rolled her eyes. I did that because he looked at my girlfriend's ass. I did that because of this. I did that. No, let me tell you why you did it. You did it because he's black and you black and you hate what you see because you don't like what you are. Stop making up lies. Control. This is real important, black people. Never give them a street victory. That we do not control. They will do more of anything they perceive to be successful. We must dictate their options by refusing expression to those options which are most threatening. Non-violent protests that do not disrupt the economic order are most favorable to our purpose. As the Negro's economic power is very strong, we must never allow economics to become a centerpiece of their movement. Why was Dr. King successful in Montgomery? Because they shut down the whole economy for 381 days. No black person rode the bus. But it wasn't in riding the bus black people that destroyed the economy. The fact that the bus wasn't riding mean white folks couldn't get to work. It mean black folk couldn't get to work. It mean white bus drivers were laid off from work. It means the city government shut the hell down. And that's why they were victorious. We can't beat them with weapons, but we can beat them with our finances, black people. And we gotta start pulling those finances together to cripple this cracker. What if we would have decided this year that not a single Christmas gift would be bought. And that's why I'm going to ask you all to join me in South Carolina, Beaufort, South Carolina, last weekend in June 29th to July 1st. We're having the first annual grassroots, not bougie ass college people, grassroots conference on Pan-Africanism, repatriation, and polygamy. Pan-Africanism, repatriation, and polygamy. It's going to be at the Oyu-Tunji African Village, the only authentic African village in North America based on the Yoruba spiritual and cosmological system. Mark your calendars, brothers and sisters. Visit my webpage for updates, DrUmarJohnson.com, DrUmarJohnson, DrUmarJohnson.com. On Twitter, Dr. Umar Ifatunde, Ifatunde. Ifatunde is my Yoruba name. It means an Ifa priest has been reborn. Also, my Facebook fan page is Dr. Umar Ifatunde. I want to see you in Beaufort. And you know that more than 75% of the Africans brought to America were brought through Charleston, South Carolina. It's time to go back home and pay homage to your roots. The date, June 29th to July 1st, last weekend in June. Rule 19, the Pan-African strategy. Operational unity of Africans on a global scale spells ruin for our grand design. We must fabricate divisions and disrupt operations on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. We must create mistrust and cultural conflict between natural allies to prevent the taking back of Africa. Whoever rules Africa rules the world. Listen to me. Yes, I'm biased. I'm a Pan-Africanist. But I'm also biased because I'm a damn good political scientist. And I know one thing that World War I taught me. I know one thing that World War II taught me. I know one thing that Africom taught me. Whoever controls Africa runs the damn world. Why can't y'all see that? You trying to empower yourselves without Africa? It's impossible. Anything you build will fail if you ain't got an ally. How you think Fidel Castro became the longest living dictator after they assassinated Gaddafi? Because he had Russia looking over his shoulder. We need an international ally, brothers and sisters. As Africa goes, so does you. It's not a question of whether or not you are Pan-Africanist. It is Pan-Africanism or perish. And you better represent that the whole earth is a chessboard. The whole earth is a chess match. And guess what the king and queen is? The top half of Africa and the bottom. If we want to be something here, there, or anywhere, you better help your brothers and sisters on the other side of the Atlantic control the richest piece of land on earth. As Africa goes, so goes the world. Now let's talk about what our ancestors did to beat the damn devil. Black supremacy. Black supremacy. Black supremacy. We got any Rasta man in here? Any Rasta woman? Indeed, Rastafari. I love my Bobo Shanti, my 12 tribes, and my Naya Biggie Rasta. Say what you want to say about the Rasta man. One thing about the Rasta man and the Rasta woman, they Pan-Africanist to the core. To the core. You don't agree with it? At least they still standing for Africa. If it wasn't for Rastafari, you wouldn't even know who Marcus Garvey was. So whoever got a problem with Rastafari got a problem with Umar Johnson. Now, second half. And I'm gonna try to make this quick. No. Black supremacy. Who the hell said we never won a war against the European? Black supremacy. Whoever said we never outfought the European? Black supremacy. Whoever said we never made the European come crawling on his hands and knees? When we talk black supremacy, because I know some of y'all come with your religious ethos, and you're saying, well, why we gotta be better than them? Black supremacy doesn't mean being supreme over the white man. It means being supreme over our damn lives. Are y'all following me in here tonight? I'm not talking about ruling him. I don't wanna rule no damn cracker. I wanna rule my life, my existence, my children, my globe, my earth, my resources. Black supremacy is the supremacy of black people over blackness.
Come on now, you better stop.
Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad said what? Black is color consciousness, creativity, and a corresponding cosmic connection. Dr. Khalid Abdul-Muhammad Ashe. We're going to go through the 34 strategies that our ancestors taught us that if we use them, we can be victorious over our enemy. In your neighborhood, on your job, or World War III, which will be the war to end all wars. Armageddon is going to be the African against the European. Until death do we fight. It's going to come. It got to come. World won't end until you take back what was rightfully yours. Your divine mother, father is mad as hell at you. I gave you the best thing of all things in Africa. And you let your enemy come and take it, and you won't do nothing to take it back. And you pray to me? Get up off your knees and stop praying to me and start fighting for your Lord. Fight for your Creator. Fight for your ancestors. Do what Garvey did. You can't have no damn good luck when you turning your back on the mother continent. How the hell are you gonna have good luck with $1 trillion of spending power? You're the richest group of blacks on the face of the earth. The 10th richest group in the whole world. But you won't use none of that money to uplift your race or your motherland. That's why we're going to Beaufort, South Carolina, because we're going to talk about it. This ain't going to be no lecture fest. I want dialogue, because I'm no smarter than any one of you. And when we build that Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Pan-African School, I want your opinion. Because despite my expertise, a million minds is still better than the best mind. So we're going to come as equals. No one being better than anybody else, and we're going to hammer this whole damn thing out, y'all. I think we owe our children that much. His Majesty, conquering Lion of Judah, King of Kings, Emperor Haile Selassie. He gave us rule number 1, use the enemy against each other. The Italians decided that they wanted a piece of Africa. Mussolini said, I want that one country that's never been conquered. I want that one country that's never been colonized. So he sent his troops into Ethiopia. And brothers and sisters stood up in Ethiopia to fight that war. And many of your ancestors from America begged the United States government to let them go and fight for Abyssinia. That's right. Black men and women in America said, let me go home and defend mine, because I'm damn tired of defending yours. The United States government said, you can't go. His Majesty said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go take a trip to the League of Nations and tell them that they best get Italy outside of my country. And the Ethiopian administrator said, Your Majesty, do you sure you want to go and ask white folks to deal with white folks? And His Majesty was shocked. He said, I'm going to use their own self-interest against themselves. So when he got to the League of Nations, he sat down with Britain and representatives from the United States and France and Portugal, and he said, y'all need to come and get rid of your trouble. And they said, that ain't our trouble, that's your trouble. Why should we get rid of a colonizer when we've colonized 85% of the world? We're sympathetic to what Mussolini is doing. And His Majesty and all his brilliance said, I just got one thing to say before I leave, gentlemen. If he takes Ethiopia, you'll be next. Have a nice day. 100 pounds soaking wet. His Majesty strolled out. They said, come on back here for a moment. We start scratching their heads and says, you know what? He got a point there. If we let him get a foothold in Ethiopia, that will also give the Germans a foothold in Africa. That will put them right under the bottom of Europe. And they will be able to fight on higher ground. He's right. If Ethiopia goes, so goes our interest. And so the League of Nations dispatched their warriors and they lined up. But keep in mind, make no mistake, it was the Ethiopian warriors who was out first defending the continent. Not those Europeans. But because His Majesty effectively employed rule number 1, use the European against the European, he was able to get Mussolini the hell out of Ethiopia. But this rule is very sensitive, black people. Because white folks are not as divided as we are, you must use this very, very selectively. Because if you choose a white person to use against another white person, you can never be sure if they will betray you. So rule number 1 is only to be used when you're absolutely certain that you have to, and that you know it will work. Keep your troops faithful. You can say whatever you want to say about Idi Amin, but Idi Amin was a Pan-Africanist. He was a friend of His Majesty, and he didn't give a damn about no cracker. One thing I like about Idi Amin is whenever the European diplomats came to Uganda and got off the plane, Idi Amin would make them bow on both knees. He said, I'm the king of Uganda, you bow before you talk to me. That's right. And when the East Indians didn't want to put none of the money that they was making in Uganda back into the economy, Idi Amin said, we ain't gonna be diplomatic, get the F out my country. Say what you want to say about Idi Amin, but one thing he wasn't was afraid of white people. Oh, y'all following me? Strategy number 2. We know how quickly black people can turn against other black people, don't we? Idi Amin made it his business to make sure that his soldiers always ate before he did. He made it his business to make sure that if somebody in his soldier's family died or was ill, he would personally pay a visit to that soldier's family. He took care of his soldiers better than he took care of himself because he knew that his life or death lay in his soldiers' hands. But how many of us in our organizations look down on the people who serve us? Look down on our secretaries. Look down on our vice presidents. Look down on our right-hand men and women. You better watch it, because those same people who you are taking for granted, the cracker will take and use them against you. Remember rule number 2, always keep the troops faithful. Rule number 3, comes from one of the greatest black men to ever live. Of course, this is an image of Henry Seeley, who played Shaka Kasensa Kakona. I had the opportunity to visit King Shaka's grave in 2005. I met with some of his grandsons. Went to the Shaka Zulu Museum. This black man, who lived at the same time of Frederick Douglass, with spears, but not with guns, brothers and sisters, never had to fight the British. Why did the British never stand up to Shaka? They had guns, tanks, cannons, because Shaka Zulu scared the shit out of them. That's rule number 3. Are y'all with me? The first time they sent white men to KwaZulu to talk with Shaka, they said black men came out of the ground and all they could feel was somebody pulling on their feet, and before you know it, they wasn't breathing no more. Shaka Zulu is the inventor of guerrilla warfare, the art of losing without seeing. The white man keep making you think that Shaka Zulu was some great tyrant. King Shaka was no tyrant. The reason why he conquered all the neighboring nations in South Africa is because he knew that the white man was coming. And he went to all the kings and queens and said, you gotta join forces so we can be strong. And they said, we don't care about you Zulus, you're powerless. So Shaka said, guess what? You're gonna get down or lay down. Shaka made them come into the Zulu kingdom to fight off the white man. And the white man was so scared, so afraid, that he never had to fight him. The Zulu wars lasted almost 100 years. They didn't take Zululand until Shaka's nephew was in charge. And even he stood up and fight the cracker. That's right. Shaka Zulu was one hell of a man. You need to study him, not the movie. Not the movie. Stop trying to get your history from books, because you're being misled. Read the books on Shaka.
Brother Umar.
Yes.
The great John Henry Clark, he did a breakdown of the movie with Shaka Zulu. He did all the correction to it. He had the DVDs out, and he also called all the African warrior Zulu beside Shaka Zulu, and he corrected all that garbage in the movie.
Excellent. Thank you for that, beloved. Rule number 4, Emperor Menelik II of Ethiopia used the Europeans' arrogance against them. The Battle of Adwa, 1896. This is the first time the Italians came in. The other European nations dispatched dignitaries to Menelik II, descendant of King Solomon and Queen Sheba, and they said, you don't want to fight this war. They have superior weapons. They got superior machinery, superior artillery. And Menelik II said, get the hell out of my face. And he drew up the battle plan, which is in the National Museum in Ethiopia right now. The battle plan. And he mounted his horse, and his queen rode with him into battle. Some of the soldiers didn't understand. They said, Emperor Menelik, Your Highness, Your Majesty, why are you letting your empress ride with you into battle? Can't she be harmed? He said, if I die, I like to die with my queen, as opposed to leave her behind to be the slave of a devil. Are y'all following me? Are y'all following me? And so the Italian came in with superior weapons and got his ass whipped all over the hills of Ethiopia. Embarrassed the hell out of him. Why? They thought that the victory would be so easy that they didn't bother to plan. Remember this, white arrogance is the best weapon we got. They really do think we're stupid. They really do think we can't plan. They really do think we can't use our emotions clearly. So guess what? Play dumb, think dumb. And in the 11th hour, you shock their ass, just like Mentally did. Use their arrogance. Rule number 5, you better big up these two. Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara. Two of the greatest black men who ever lived. Both of them were Garveyites. Both of them were Pan-Africanists. And this is the most important rule for the brothers in here. Watch your right-hand man. Patrice Lumumba found Mobutu, trained him, brought him in, let him lead when no one else would give him a chance to. And then he made the fatal mistake of putting a frenemy in charge of the Congolese military force. The CIA met with Mobutu, who only reason for being close to Lumumba was to do what?
Take him down.
Take him down. And they offered him the presidency of the Congo if he would help them assassinate Lumumba. And that's what they did, brothers and sisters. He sent troops to assassinate the man who groomed him and raised him up. And then they captured Lumumba, took him into the forest, beat him damn near to death with 2 of his closest allies who never turned his back. I got 2 of my closest allies right here who never turned their back on me. They went down with him. And guess what they did? To hide the shame, they sliced up Prime Minister Lumumba's body into little teeny pieces and dissolved it in sulfuric acid. The only thing that remained was pieces of his skull and fractures of his teeth. This is what they did. Why? Because Lumumba said Africa is for the Africans. It is not for the Europeans. He said if you want our gold, you pay for it. You want our coltan, you pay for it. You want our diamonds, you pay. No more exploitation. And they said, oh hell no, this Negro think independence is for real. And so they killed him. Thomas Sankara, betrayed by Blaise Diane, I believe the brother's name was, the devil's name was. He raised him up, groomed him up. Sankara's associate said, you gotta get rid of him. He doesn't want you any good. He said, nah, leave him alone. I could win him back over. And guess what he ended up doing? One day Sankara was coming out of the palace, and Blaise Diane's, his soldiers, riddled him full of bullets and buried his body before anybody knew he was dead. Listen to me, brothers and sisters. One of the most important things you're going to have to be able to do as we fight this political and military war is decide who you can trust and who you can't. And the second most important decision is to decide what? Who you can convert and who you need to leave the hell alone. For my sisters in the room, one of the reasons you need to big up Thomas Sankara and Patrice Lumumba is because these 2 African heads of state fought for the equality of women in Africa. They fought for the right for women to go into business. They fought for the right to women to go to college. They fought for the right for women to do whatever they want and not just sit home obeying the sexual cause of their husbands. They were women rights activists on the continent, 2 of the first black men to stand. And then this is the granddaddy of them all, the Right Excellent Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. 15 million African men and women. Show me a leader who brought 15 million together. You might show me 100,000. You might show me 250,000. You ain't never see a black man bring 15 million black people together from every continent on earth, speaking every language, representing every religion, who stood up at one time and said, I am African. That's what Garvey did. And what else makes Garvey unique? He was the only leader ever to never take a penny from the Arab or the European. There's no other leader you can name who never took a penny from the Arab or the European. Mr. Garvey is the only one. So he started the African Redemption Fund to do what? Develop economic independence for African people. He said the UNIA is a racial movement, but we need jobs to feed. We need military to defend. Do you know that Mr. Garvey was one step away from developing an independent nation for Africans who wanted to repatriate back to Liberia? And the United States government sent W.E.B. Du Bois to destroy his plans. The Garveyites showed up in Liberia with thousands of dollars of construction equipment, brothers and sisters. Hundreds of thousands in cash. They had agriculturalists, engineers, educators. Marcus Garvey wasn't playing. He wasn't talking economic development. He lived it. And when the Titanic didn't allow black people to ride on their white star line, because the Titanic was the white star line, Marcus Garvey said, to hell with them, we will start a black star line. And you're looking at the first ship, the SS Frederick Douglass, named after my ancestor. Mr. Garvey gave us two universities, Universal Liberty University in Virginia, Booker T. Washington University right here in New York City. The first black butcher was a Garveyite. The first black woman to run for vice president of the United States was a Garveyite. Cuba and Puerto Rico were the most thoroughly organized Garveyite islands, brothers and sisters. South Africa, the most thoroughly organized South African nation. There was no black people on earth who was without their red, black, and green flag. Before the Black Panthers had a fight with the Ku Klux Klan, with the police, the Universal African Legion, the Garveyites were standing toe-to-toe with the Ku Klux Klan. Body for body, shot for shot, knife for knife. They defended the black community, and some Negroes got mad at Mr. Garvey because he sat down and met with the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. They said, why in the hell is he meeting with him? What's wrong with him? Marcus Garvey said, you don't understand political science. Garveyites are killing Ku Kluxes, and Ku Kluxes are killing Garveyites. I can't stand him, and he can't stand me. He's unapologetically white, and I'm unapologetically black. We don't agree on nothing but one thing, that it's time for us to stop killing. That's called diplomacy, brothers and sisters. When America sits down with China, they're not sitting down with friends, they're sitting down with enemies. But sometimes you gotta call a truce to the nonsense so you don't lose nobody's unnecessarily. Marcus Garvey was elected right here in New York City, August of 1920, as provisional president of Africa, from about 25,000 Africans representing us all over the world. We got to get back to Garveyism. But we got to understand something. I don't care what you want to do in America, I got some bad news for you. Sooner or later, you better repatriate your project before they destroy it. Talk economics, let's talk it. But at what point do we take it back home? You heard of Black Wall Street. You heard of Tulsa, Oklahoma. You heard of Rosewood, Florida. You heard of Charleston, South Carolina. Whenever black folks' economic success surpassed the cracker, they destroyed it. So we can build it here, we can maintain it, but when we're ready to take it global, the headquarters must be in an African nation. Are y'all following me? Cut your umbilical cord to your slave master. El Hajj. El Hajj. El Hajj. El Hajj. Malik El Shabazz, the son of Garveyite parents, Malcolm X. Our ancestor is telling us from the grave, never fight two wars. When he said what he said, whether you agreed with it or not, about Mr. Muhammad, those who loved Mr. Muhammad thought it was their business to try to take out Brother Malcolm. We're not going to debate the ethics, because I got opinions on that as well. But I want you to recognize the lesson. When you are fighting a greater enemy, let the sleeping ones lie. Are y'all following me? If we're trying to organize and take a fight to the United Nations for the mistreatment of Africans in this country, a nation in exile, any beef we got with the Urban League, any beef we got with the NAACP, any beef we got with any black organization, I want you to choose your enemies wisely. Because if you upset a black enemy while you're trying to fight a white enemy, that white enemy might go behind your back and work with your black enemy. Are y'all following me? So if you got an enemy in the black community, let it go. Your life ain't worth it. If I could, and I know if Brother Malcolm could do it all over again, he would have let that ride. That way there could have been no pretext or context for his assassination. And do you know that there's some evidence to suggest that at least one of the bullets that shot Brother Malcolm came from up top behind him?
Yeah.
Rule number 8, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, make sure the enemy is clear. You may not agree with his politics. You may not agree with his theosophy. But there was one stroke of genius, at least one stroke of genius in the man's plan. He articulated his philosophy. So you could understand it whether you was illiterate or not, whether you could read or not, whether you were a deep thinker or not. When he said the white man is the devil, it left absolutely no contradictions as to where he stood. Are y'all following me? That was a stroke of genius. Economically, it was a stroke of genius. Why? Because by telling black people the white man was the devil, you couldn't even consider giving him $1. By telling black people the white man was the devil, you couldn't consider sending your children to their schools. By telling people the white man was the devil, you would never trust him. So you could disagree with his politics. But to make his theology as simple and plain as he did for everybody was a stroke of genius. Yes. 5 minutes. Okay. I can't. There's no way to extend? I got 34 principles. I'm on 9.
Give some more minutes. Extend it.
We went over the hour already.
Okay. So this is what we do. I'm going to go through 5 more, and I'm going to have to close to respect the orders. We got to keep our order. This is what we do. If anybody in here got a building that we can go to with a projector right after we leave here tonight, if we got anybody with a building with a projector, I got my own laptop. Anybody?
Can do spirit.
This is why we got an institution build, black people. This is why we got an institution build. Because when we come together to teach, these kind of things can't happen.
That's right.
Nobody with a building or a projector. No mega church. Nobody. No storefront. Religious temple. Okay. Well, if somebody wants to host the presentation in its entirety, send me an email and I'll do it for free. We'll come back, check my Facebook wall, and I want to go through all of these principles. Okay? I want to go through all of these principles because we ain't got time to go through them now. We ain't got time to go through them now.
I love it.
So,
That's how we do, sir.
Part 2, Brother Umar will be starting it off.